Sarah Martinez stood in front of her bedroom mirror, carefully applying her signature pink lipstick. The bright coral shade had been her trademark since high school, and she refused to give it up despite the endless teasing from her classmates at the Naval Academy. Her roommate, Jessica, rolled her eyes as she watched Sarah perfect her makeup routine. "You know they're going to eat you alive again today," Jessica warned, pulling on her crisp uniform. "Commander Hayes already thinks you're not serious about this program." Sarah smiled at her reflection, her pink lips catching the morning light streaming through their dorm window. She had grown up in a small town in Texas where her father ran a flower shop and her mother taught kindergarten. Everyone expected her to follow in their gentle footsteps, maybe become a teacher or marry young and raise children. Nobody understood why she wanted to join the military, especially the elite Navy SEAL program that had only recently opened to women. The other cadets at the academy saw her as a joke. They nicknamed her Barbie and whispered that she was only there because the Navy needed to fill their female quota. During physical training, they would make comments about her perfectly manicured nails and the way she never seemed to sweat through her makeup. Even some of the instructors seemed skeptical that someone who spent 20 minutes every morning on her appearance could handle the brutal demands of special forces training. But Sarah had a secret that none of them knew. Growing up, her older brother Miguel had been her hero. He was a Marine who died in combat when Sarah was 16. Before he left for his final deployment, he had taught her everything he knew about survival, combat, and mental toughness. They would spend hours in the woods behind their house, with Miguel showing her how to move silently, how to read terrain, and how to push through pain and exhaustion. "Never let them see you break. Little sister," Miguel had told her during one of their training sessions, "and never apologize for being exactly who you are. Your strength doesn't have to look like everyone else's." So Sarah kept wearing her pink lipstick, not as an act of rebellion, but as a reminder of her brother's words. Every morning when she applied it, she thought about Miguel and the promise she had made at his funeral to carry on his legacy in her own way. She knew that her fellow cadets saw weakness when they looked at her feminine appearance, but she saw armor. The academy's training was brutal by design. Sarah excelled in academics, consistently ranking in the top 5% of her class in subjects like tactical strategy, weapon systems, and military history. But the physical challenges were where her classmates expected her to fail. During the grueling obstacle courses, she could hear snickers and comments about whether her lipstick would survive the mud crawls. What they didn't see was how Sarah trained in secret. While her classmates were relaxing in their free time, she was in the gym at 4 a.m. pushing her body to its limits. She studied martial arts videos on her laptop late into the night, practicing moves in the empty corridors when everyone else was asleep. Her roommate Jessica knew about some of these extra training sessions, but even she didn't understand the full extent of Sarah's dedication. Commander Hayes, their primary instructor, was the intimidating man who had served 3 tours with the SEALs before becoming a trainer. He had made it clear from day one that he believed women had no place in special forces. During weapons training, he would stand behind Sarah and make comments about her pretty little hands and whether she was strong enough to handle real combat situations. The breaking point came during a particularly challenging field exercise. The cadets were dropped in the middle of a forest with minimal supplies and told to survive for 3 days while completing a series of objectives. Sarah's team consisted of 4 male cadets who had made it clear they considered her dead weight. Their leader, an arrogant cadet named Brad Thompson, told the group that they would move faster if they left Sarah behind. "Look, Barbie, this isn't a beauty pageant," Brad said as they studied their map on the first night. "Why don't you stay here and guard the camp while the real soldiers handle the mission objectives?" Sarah looked at her teammates, seeing the same dismissive attitude she had faced for months. Her pink lipstick had faded throughout the day, but she could still feel its presence like a shield of confidence. She thought about Miguel, about all the nights they had spent in similar woods, and about the promise she had made to prove that strength came in many forms. "I have a better idea," Sarah said quietly, her voice carrying a steel that made the others look up in surprise. "Why don't you follow me and I'll show you how real soldiers complete a mission?" What happened next would change everything. Sarah took point, using skills that her classmates didn't know she possessed. She navigated through the dense forest with the confidence of someone who had been doing it since childhood. When they encountered their first objective, a simulated enemy camp that they needed to infiltrate, Sarah's tactical knowledge and physical agility stunned her teammates. She moved through the shadows like she was born for it, her movements precise and silent. While her teammates struggled with the basic infiltration techniques they had learned in class, Sarah demonstrated a natural ability that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than their textbook training. By the end of the first day, Brad and the others were looking at her with a mixture of confusion and grudging respect. But Sarah knew this was just the beginning. The real test wasn't proving herself to her classmates or even her instructors. The real test would come when she faced the Navy SEAL selection process, where her pink lipstick and feminine appearance would mark her as an outsider in the most elite military unit in the world. The field exercise results shocked everyone at the Naval Academy. Sarah's team had not only completed all their objectives, but they had done so faster and more efficiently than any other group. Commander Hayes stood before the assembled cadets, his weathered face showing the first crack in his skeptical armor as he announced the rankings. Team Delta, led by Cadet Martinez, achieved a perfect score, he said, his voice betraying a hint of surprise. They completed the infiltration exercise in record time and showed exceptional tactical awareness throughout the 3-day operation. The mess hall fell silent as Sarah's classmates processed this information. Brad Thompson, who had tried to sideline her just days earlier, now found himself in the awkward position of owing his team's success to the woman he had dismissed as Barbie. The other cadets stared at Sarah as she sat calmly eating her lunch, her pink lipstick freshly applied despite 3 days in the wilderness. But Sarah knew that one successful exercise wouldn't be enough to change deeply held attitudes. The whispers continued, with many claiming that she had gotten lucky or that her male teammates had actually done the real work. Some suggested that the instructors had gone easy on her team because they were afraid of appearing sexist. Sarah listened to these comments in silence, using them as fuel for the fire that burned inside her. Word of her performance reached Captain Rebecca Stone, one of the few female officers in the Navy's Special Operations community. Captain Stone had fought her own battles to earn respect in a male-dominated field, and she saw something in Sarah that reminded her of her younger self. She requested a private meeting with the cadet, curious about this young woman who was causing such a stir at the academy. "I've read your file, Martinez," Captain Stone said as they sat in her austere office. "Your academic scores are excellent and your recent field performance was impressive. But I need to know something. Are you here to prove a point or are you here to serve your country?" Sarah met the captain's intense gaze without flinching. "Ma'am, I'm here because I made a promise to my brother before he died. He was a Marine, and he taught me that service isn't about proving anything to anyone. It's about being willing to sacrifice everything for something bigger than yourself." Captain Stone nodded slowly, recognizing the sincerity in Sarah's voice. "The path you're choosing isn't just difficult, Martinez. It's brutal. The SEAL training program has broken men who were bigger, stronger, and more experienced than you. They'll try to crush your spirit in ways you can't imagine, and through it all you'll be carrying the extra burden of proving that women belong in special forces." "I understand, ma'am," Sarah replied, "but I'd rather fail trying to be something extraordinary than succeed at being ordinary." Over the following months, Sarah's performance continued to improve dramatically. She excelled in advanced combat training, mastering weapon systems with a precision that impressed even her harshest critics. Her small stature, which many had seen as a disadvantage, actually proved to be an asset in certain situations. She could move through tight spaces that larger soldiers couldn't navigate, and her natural agility made her exceptional at close-quarters combat. The physical training became more intense as the cadets prepared for their final evaluations. Sarah pushed herself harder than anyone else, often training until she collapsed from exhaustion. Jessica would find her practicing combat techniques in their room late at night, her pink lipstick the only splash of color in a world that was becoming increasingly gray and brutal. "Don't you ever get tired of fighting for respect?" Jessica asked one night as she watched Sarah ice her bruised knuckles after a particularly brutal sparring session. Sarah smiled, thinking of Miguel and all the conversations they had shared about what it meant to be a warrior. "My brother taught me that respect isn't something you can demand or expect. It's something you earn through your actions one day at a time, and once you earn it, you have to keep earning it every single day after that." The mockery about her appearance began to fade as her reputation grew. Sarah had proven herself in every challenge the academy could throw at her, from advanced marksmanship to underwater survival training. Her instructors began to view her differently, seeing past the pink lipstick to the fierce determination underneath. Commander Hayes, who had been her biggest skeptic, found himself grudgingly impressed by her consistency. During a particularly challenging night navigation exercise, Sarah had led her team through a complex course in conditions that had confused and disoriented many of the male cadets. When other teams got lost or failed to complete their objectives, Sarah's team finished first with no mistakes. "Martinez," Commander Hayes called after the exercise debriefing, "I want to speak with you privately." Sarah followed him to his office, unsure what to expect. The commander sat behind his desk for a long moment, studying her with the same intensity he brought to analyzing combat footage. "When you first arrived here, I thought you were another idealistic young woman who didn't understand what military service really meant," he began. "I figured you'd wash out after the first month when you realized that war isn't a game, and special forces isn't a career for people who want to make political statements." Sarah remained silent, waiting for him to continue. "But I was wrong about you, Martinez. You've shown more heart and determination than most of the men in your class. You've earned your place here, and anyone who says otherwise is a fool." He paused, then added, "However, what you've accomplished here is nothing compared to what awaits you in SEAL training. The instructors there won't care about your academy records or your impressive test scores. They'll see a woman in pink lipstick and they'll do everything in their power to break you." Sarah straightened in her chair. "Sir, I'd like to formally request consideration for SEAL training." Commander Hayes had expected this moment, but he still felt a mixture of pride and concern as he looked at the young woman across from his desk. He had trained hundreds of soldiers over his career, but few had shown the combination of intelligence, physical ability, and mental toughness that Sarah possessed. At the same time, he knew better than anyone how brutal SEAL training could be, and he worried about what would happen when she faced the ultimate test of her abilities and resolve. "I'll forward your request, Martinez, but understand that once you step into that program, there's no protection from anyone. You'll be alone with your training partners and instructors who won't care about your feelings or your previous accomplishments. Many of them will actively hope you fail." He stood up and extended his hand. "But if anyone can prove them wrong, it might just be you." The bus pulled up to the SEAL training facility in Coronado, California, on a gray Monday morning. Sarah stepped off with 23 other candidates, all men, all looking nervous but trying to hide it behind cocky grins and tough guy postures. She stood out immediately, not just because she was the only woman, but because of the small tube of pink lipstick she carried in her cargo pocket alongside her regulation gear. Instructor Chief Petty Officer Marcus "Brick" Wellington stood waiting for the new class, his massive frame casting a shadow over the nervous recruits. He had been a SEAL for 15 years before becoming an instructor, and his reputation for breaking overconfident candidates was legendary. His eyes swept over the group before landing on Sarah, and his expression shifted to something between amusement and contempt. "Well, well," Chief Wellington's voice boomed across the courtyard. "Looks like somebody got lost on their way to a beauty pageant. This is SEAL training, Princess, not a fashion show." The male candidates snickered, grateful that the instructor's attention was focused on someone else. Sarah stood at attention, her eyes fixed straight ahead, showing no reaction to the verbal assault. She had expected this moment and had prepared herself mentally for months. "Did you bring your makeup bag, sweetheart?" Chief Wellington continued, circling around Sarah like a predator. "Because where you're going, there won't be any mirrors. There won't be any sympathy. There won't be any special treatment just because you're a pretty little girl who thinks she can play soldier." Sarah remained silent and motionless, which seemed to irritate the instructor even more. He had expected tears or anger or some sign that his words were having an effect. Instead, he found himself looking at a stone-faced recruit who seemed completely unfazed by his intimidation tactics. The first phase of SEAL training was designed to weed out candidates who lacked the physical and mental toughness required for special operations. The instructors pushed the recruits to their absolute limits through endless physical challenges, sleep deprivation, and psychological pressure. Many candidates dropped out within the first week, unable to handle the relentless pace and constant stress. Sarah's days began at 4 a.m. with a brutal physical training session that included hundreds of push-ups, sit-ups, and pull-ups, followed by a long run on the beach in full gear. The instructors paid special attention to her, adding extra weight to her pack and increasing her repetition counts beyond what the male candidates were required to complete. "Martinez," Chief Wellington would shout during the morning runs. Pick up the pace. Your boyfriends back home aren't going to save you when bullets start flying. But Sarah had learned long ago how to push through physical pain and mental exhaustion. During the worst moments, when her muscles screamed for relief and her lungs burned from exertion, she would think about Miguel and the promise she had made. She would visualize applying her pink lipstick each morning as a ritual of strength, a reminder that she was fighting for something bigger than herself. The other candidates began to notice that Sarah never complained, never asked for breaks, and never showed signs of quitting. During the notorious log PT exercises, where teams of 6 had to carry massive telephone poles over obstacle courses, Sarah more than pulled her weight despite being the smallest person in her group. Her teammates, initially skeptical about being assigned a female partner, gradually began to respect her work ethic and determination. "Hey, Martinez," called out Jake Peterson, a former college football player from Ohio, after a particularly brutal day of training. "How do you do it? How do you keep going when everything hurts and the instructors are constantly on your case?" Sarah was sitting on her bunk, carefully cleaning her rifle while the other candidates nursed their injuries and complained about the day's challenges. She looked up at Jake, considering how to answer his question. "My brother taught me that pain is temporary, but quitting lasts forever," she said simply. "And besides, they're not trying to break me because I'm weak. They're trying to break me because they're afraid I might actually make it." Word of Sarah's performance began to spread beyond the training facility. She was completing every challenge, meeting every standard, and showing no signs of the mental breakdown that the instructors had confidently predicted. Her small but significant acts of defiance, like continuing to wear her pink lipstick despite the constant ridicule, began to take on symbolic importance among the other candidates. During the water survival training, which was notorious for causing candidates to panic and quit, Sarah demonstrated an unexpected affinity for underwater operations. Her small size and efficient swimming technique allowed her to excel in exercises that challenged much larger and stronger candidates. When other recruits struggled to complete underwater knot-tying exercises, Sarah finished with time to spare. Chief Wellington found himself in the uncomfortable position of having to acknowledge Sarah's superior performance in front of the other instructors. During their weekly evaluation meeting, he was forced to admit that she was not only keeping up with the male candidates but was actually outperforming many of them in crucial areas. "She's good," admitted Instructor Davis, who oversaw the water training. "Better than good, actually. I've seen Navy divers with years of experience who couldn't match her underwater times." Chief Wellington frowned, unwilling to give up his belief that Sarah would eventually crack under pressure. "It's only been 3 weeks. Wait until we get to Hell Week. Wait until she's sleep-deprived and hallucinating from exhaustion. That's when we'll see what she's really made of." Hell Week was the legendary 5th week of SEAL training, where candidates endured 5.5 days of continuous training, with a total of only 4 hours of sleep. It was the make-or-break moment that separated true warriors from those who simply thought they wanted to be SEALs. The dropout rate during Hell Week typically exceeded 50%, and the instructors took particular pleasure in predicting that Sarah would be among the first to ring the bell that signaled surrender. But as Hell Week approached, Sarah felt more prepared than ever. She had survived every challenge the program had thrown at her, and she had earned the respect of her fellow candidates through her actions rather than her words. Most importantly, she had proven to herself that her brother's training and her own determination were enough to carry her through whatever lay ahead. On the Sunday night before Hell Week began, Sarah sat alone in the barracks bathroom, applying her pink lipstick one last time before the most difficult week of her life. She looked at herself in the mirror, seeing not the scared girl who had been mocked at the Naval Academy, but a warrior who had earned her place among the elite. The lipstick was no longer a symbol of femininity that made her different from the other candidates. It had become her war paint, a declaration that she would face Hell Week on her own terms. Hell Week began at midnight on a Sunday with the deafening sound of machine gun fire and explosions. The instructors stormed into the barracks, screaming orders and dragging candidates from their beds into the cold California night. Sarah jolted awake with the others, her pink lipstick still faintly visible despite the chaos erupting around her. "Move! Move! Move!" Chief Wellington roared as the candidates scrambled to dress and form ranks outside.
"Welcome to Hell Week, ladies.
For the next 5 days you belong to us. You'll eat when we say eat, sleep when we say sleep, and breathe when we give you permission. The first challenge came immediately. The entire class was ordered into the frigid Pacific Ocean, where they had to link arms and remain standing in the surf for 2 hours, while instructors threw smoke grenades and fired blank rounds over their heads. The water temperature was barely above 50 degrees, and within minutes, several candidates were showing signs of hypothermia. Sarah stood between Jake Peterson and another candidate named Tony Rodriguez, their arms locked together as waves crashed over their heads. Her lips had turned blue from the cold, but the faint trace of pink was still visible, like a flag of defiance against the brutal conditions. She could feel Jake shivering violently beside her, and she knew that the mental battle was just as important as the physical one. "Stay with me, Jake," she whispered through chattering teeth. "Think about something warm. Think about why you're here." "I can't feel my legs," Jake stammered back, his voice barely audible over the crashing waves. "Then lean on me," Sarah replied. "We're all going to make it through this together." By dawn, 3 candidates had already quit, unable to handle the combination of cold, exhaustion, and psychological pressure. The remaining 21 were marched to the beach for the first of countless physical training sessions that would continue around the clock for the next 5 days. The instructors had designed Hell Week to push candidates beyond their breaking point. They were allowed only 4 hours of sleep total across the entire week, with brief naps scattered between grueling exercises. Meals were eaten standing up while instructors screamed in their faces, and bathroom breaks were considered a luxury that had to be earned through superior performance. Sarah found herself drawing on reserves of strength she didn't know she possessed. During the endless beach runs, when her legs felt like lead and her lungs burned with each breath, she would focus on the rhythm of her feet hitting the sand and think about Miguel's voice encouraging her to keep going. When the instructors forced them to carry heavy boats over their heads for miles, she would visualize herself succeeding, seeing herself as the warrior her brother always believed she could become. Martinez, Chief Wellington, called out during a particularly brutal log carry exercise on the second day. "You're holding up your team. Maybe you should ring that bell and go home to your dolls." Sarah was barely 5 feet tall and weighed less than 130 pounds, making her the smallest person in the entire class. But she had learned to use leverage and technique to compensate for her size disadvantage. When the larger candidates tried to muscle through challenges with brute force, Sarah relied on efficiency and intelligence. "Not today, instructor," Sarah called back, adjusting her grip on the massive log and continuing to march forward with her teammates. The psychological warfare intensified as the week progressed. The instructors would wake the candidates at random times, forcing them to perform complex tasks while they were disoriented and exhausted. During one middle-of-the-night exercise, they were required to disassemble and reassemble their weapons in complete darkness, while instructors threw cold water on them and screamed contradictory orders. Sarah's hands moved with practiced precision, even in the darkness. The countless hours she had spent training in secret at the Naval Academy now paid dividends as she completed the weapons drill faster than most of her male counterparts. But what impressed the instructors most was her ability to help struggling teammates without compromising her own performance. Rodriguez, "The firing pin goes here," she whispered to Tony, who was fumbling with his rifle parts in confusion. Her guidance helped him complete the exercise just before the time limit expired. By the third day, several more candidates had quit, unable to handle the sleep deprivation and constant physical demands. Those who remained began to form a tight bond, relying on each other for emotional and physical support. Sarah found herself naturally taking on a leadership role, encouraging exhausted teammates and helping them push through moments of despair. During the notorious surf torture exercise, where candidates had to lie in the freezing surf for extended periods, Sarah led the group in singing cadences to maintain morale and keep everyone focused. Her voice, hoarse from exhaustion, carried across the beach as she helped her teammates fight off hypothermia and the urge to quit. The instructors began to notice that Sarah's presence seemed to strengthen the entire class. Candidates who might have quit individually found the courage to continue when they saw her refusing to give up. Her pink lipstick, now completely worn away but still symbolically present in everyone's mind, had become a rallying point for the entire group. Chief Wellington pulled aside his fellow instructors during a brief break on the 4th day. "I don't understand it," he admitted, his frustration evident. "She should have broken by now." She's half the size of most of these guys, and we've thrown everything at her that's ever made a candidate quit. Instructor Davis nodded thoughtfully. It's not about size, Chief, it's about what's inside. And whatever's driving that girl, it's stronger than anything we can throw at her. The final day of Hell Week brought the most challenging exercises yet. The remaining candidates, now down to 15 from the original 24, were pushed through a series of team challenges that required perfect coordination and communication. Sarah's natural leadership abilities and tactical intelligence helped her team excel in scenarios that had stumped previous classes. During the final beach run, as the sun set on their 5th day of continuous training, Sarah felt a sense of accomplishment that went beyond personal achievement. She had not only survived Hell Week, but she had helped her teammates survive as well. The bonds forged during those 5 days of shared suffering would last for the rest of their military careers. As the candidates crossed the finish line, Chief Wellington stood waiting with an expression that Sarah had never seen before. For the first time since she had arrived at the training facility, he looked at her with something resembling respect. "Martinez," he said as she stood at attention before him, exhausted but unbroken. "You've earned the right to continue with SEAL training, but understand that Hell Week was just the beginning. The real challenges are still ahead." Sarah nodded, too tired to speak but not too tired to smile. She had proven to herself and everyone else that strength came in many forms, and that a woman with pink lipstick could stand alongside the toughest warriors in the world. More importantly, she had honored Miguel's memory and kept the promise she had made at his funeral. 6 months after Hell Week, Sarah stood in the advanced training facility, preparing for her first live fire exercise as part of SEAL Team 7. The 15 candidates who had survived Hell Week had been whittled down to just 8 through months of increasingly specialized training. Sarah was not only still standing, but she had consistently ranked among the top performers in every phase of the program. Her pink lipstick had become something of a legend within the SEAL community. Word had spread throughout the special operations world about the small woman who refused to abandon her feminine trademark, despite the brutal demands of military training. Some viewed it as a publicity stunt, but those who had trained alongside Sarah understood that it represented something much deeper. Lieutenant Commander James "Hawk" Morrison, the commanding officer of SEAL Team 7, had initially been skeptical about having a female operator assigned to his unit. He was a 20-year veteran who had led countless missions in Iraq and Afghanistan, and he worried that adding a woman to his team would create complications and distractions that could get people killed. "Martinez," he called, as Sarah finished checking her gear before the training exercise. "I want to speak with you privately before we begin." Sarah followed him to a quiet corner of the equipment room, where he turned to face her with the serious expression that had earned him respect throughout the SEAL community. "I'm going to be straight with you," Commander Morrison began. "You've proven yourself during training, and your instructors tell me you're one of the most tactically sound operators they've seen in years. But training and real combat are two very different things. When bullets start flying and people start dying, I need to know that you can handle the pressure without putting my team at risk." Sarah met his gaze steadily. "Sir, I understand your concerns, but I didn't come this far to let anyone down. When we're in the field, I'll be just another SEAL. No special treatment, no excuses, no holding back." The live fire exercise was designed to simulate a hostage rescue mission in an urban environment. Sarah's team would have to infiltrate a multi-story building, neutralize hostile targets, and extract civilian hostages while under simulated enemy fire. It was the kind of complex operation that required perfect coordination and split-second decision-making. As the team prepared to begin the exercise, Sarah noticed Jake Peterson checking his equipment nervously. He had struggled during some of the recent training scenarios, and she could see the doubt creeping into his mind. "Hey Jake," she said quietly, applying a fresh coat of pink lipstick before putting on her tactical gear. "Remember what got us through Hell Week? We stick together. We trust each other and we never give up." Jake smiled, his confidence returning as he watched Sarah transform from a concerned teammate into a focused warrior. "Roger that, Martinez. Let's show them what we can do." The exercise began with Sarah's team approaching the target building under cover of darkness. She had been assigned the role of point person, responsible for leading the team through the building and identifying threats before they could engage the hostages. It was a position typically reserved for the most experienced operators, and the fact that she had been chosen showed how far she had come in earning the respect of her commanding officers. Moving through the building, Sarah demonstrated the tactical skills that had impressed her instructors throughout training. She cleared each room with methodical precision, using hand signals to communicate with her teammates and identifying threat priorities with remarkable accuracy. Her small stature proved to be an advantage as she moved through tight spaces and approached targets from unexpected angles. During the most challenging phase of the exercise, Sarah's team encountered a simulated ambush that required them to fight their way through multiple hostile positions while protecting civilian hostages. The scenario was designed to create chaos and confusion, testing the operator's ability to maintain discipline under extreme pressure. Sarah found herself separated from her teammates during the firefight, facing multiple simulated enemies in a stairwell while trying to reach the hostage location. Using the close-quarters combat techniques she had mastered through months of training, she methodically engaged each target while moving toward her objective. Her movements were fluid and efficient, wasting no time or ammunition as she cleared the path ahead. "Martinez, report your status." Commander Morrison's voice crackled through her radio as she reached the room containing the hostages. "Hostage room secured?" "Sir," Sarah replied calmly, even though her heart was pounding from the intense simulated combat. 3 targets neutralized, 4 civilians safe and ready for extraction. When the exercise concluded, the training supervisors gathered to debrief the team's performance. Sarah's team had completed the mission faster than any previous group, with no simulated casualties and perfect hostage recovery. More importantly, they had demonstrated the kind of seamless teamwork that was essential for real-world operations. "Outstanding work, team," announced Colonel Patricia Hayes, the senior training officer who had been observing the exercise. "Martinez, your tactical awareness and decision-making under pressure were exceptional. You've shown that you can not only keep up with your teammates but actually enhance their effectiveness through your leadership and skills." Commander Morrison approached Sarah after the debriefing, his earlier skepticism replaced by genuine respect. "I owe you an apology, Martinez. I was wrong to doubt your capabilities based on anything other than your performance. You've earned your place on this team, and I'm proud to have you as one of my operators." Over the following weeks, Sarah continued to excel in increasingly complex training scenarios. She demonstrated proficiency in underwater demolitions, advanced marksmanship, foreign language skills, and psychological operations. Her ability to think creatively and adapt to unexpected situations made her particularly valuable during training exercises that required unconventional solutions. The other members of her team began to see Sarah not as a woman trying to prove herself in a man's world, but as a fellow warrior who brought unique strengths to their unit. Jake Peterson, who had become one of her closest friends during training, often remarked that having Sarah on the team made everyone perform better. "She doesn't just carry her own weight," Jake told Tony Rodriguez after a particularly successful training mission. "She makes the rest of us want to be better SEALs. There's something about her determination that's contagious." As Sarah's training neared completion, she received word that SEAL Team 7 had been selected for deployment to a classified location, where they would face their first real-world mission. The years of training, the months of proving herself, and the countless challenges she had overcome had all led to this moment. Standing in front of her locker, Sarah carefully applied her pink lipstick one more time before packing her gear for deployment. She thought about Miguel and the journey that had brought her from a small Texas town to the elite ranks of the Navy SEALs. She had proven that strength and courage came in many forms, and that a woman with pink lipstick could stand among the deadliest warriors in the world. But she also knew that her greatest challenges still lay ahead. In the field, there would be no instructors grading her performance and no controlled training scenarios. There would only be real enemies, real danger, and the lives of her teammates depending on her ability to perform when it mattered most. The helicopter descended through the darkness toward a remote outpost in Afghanistan, carrying SEAL Team 7 on their first operational mission with Sarah as a full team member. Intelligence reports indicated that a high-value target, a terrorist leader responsible for planning attacks against American forces, was hiding in a compound deep in hostile territory. Sarah checked her equipment one final time as the helicopter approached the landing zone. Her pink lipstick was carefully tucked in a sealed pocket of her tactical vest, a small reminder of who she was beneath all the military gear. She had applied it before the mission briefing, a ritual that had become as important to her as checking her weapons and communications equipment. Commander Morrison's voice crackled through their headsets as the helicopter touched down. "Remember, this is a capture mission. We need this target alive for interrogation. Martinez, you'll be taking point on the compound approach. Your size advantage could be crucial for the initial breach." As the team moved through the rocky terrain toward their target, Sarah felt a mixture of excitement and nervous energy that she had never experienced during training exercises. This was real combat with real consequences for failure. The lives of her teammates and potentially countless future victims of terrorist attacks depended on their success tonight. The compound sat on a hillside overlooking a valley that served as a smuggling route for weapons and fighters moving between Pakistan and Afghanistan. Intelligence suggested that the target, known by the codename Viper, had been using the location as a safe house while planning his next operation against coalition forces. Sarah led the team through the outer perimeter, using night vision equipment to identify and avoid enemy sentries. Her training in stealth movement proved invaluable as she guided her teammates past multiple guard positions without detection. The months of practicing silent movement through various terrains had prepared her for exactly this type of approach. "Contact front," Sarah whispered into her radio as she spotted 2 guards near the main entrance to the compound. 2 tangos armed with AK-47s approximately 30 meters from the target building. Commander Morrison's response was immediate. "Can you neutralize them silently?" Sarah studied the guards' positions and movement patterns, calculating angles and timing in her head. "Affirmative, sir. Give me 2 minutes." Moving like a shadow, Sarah circled around the guards' position until she was directly behind them. Using the close-quarters combat techniques she had mastered during training, she neutralized both sentries without alerting anyone else in the compound. Her teammates moved forward quickly to secure the area and prepare for the main assault. The breach of the target building required precision timing and flawless execution. Sarah and Jake Peterson were assigned to clear the ground floor, while the rest of the team secured the upper levels where intelligence indicated the target was most likely hiding. As they moved through the building, Sarah's tactical awareness and quick decision-making proved crucial in avoiding several booby traps that had been set to stop intruders. "Explosive device, northeast corner," Sarah reported quietly as she identified a tripwire connected to what appeared to be a homemade bomb. "I can disarm it, but I'll need 30 seconds. Using skills learned during her demolitions training, Sarah carefully disarmed the device while Jake provided security. Her steady hands and thorough knowledge of explosive systems allowed her to neutralize the threat without triggering an alarm that would have alerted the entire compound to their presence. As they continued clearing the building, Sarah heard movement from an adjacent room that hadn't appeared on their intelligence briefings. Making a split-second decision, she signaled for Jake to cover her while she investigated the unexpected sound. Inside the room, Sarah discovered something that changed the entire nature of their mission. 3 young children, apparently the target's family members, were hiding in a corner, terrified by the sounds of the approaching assault team. According to their mission briefing, the compound was supposed to contain only enemy combatants, but the presence of civilian children created a complex moral and tactical challenge. "Commander, this is Martinez," Sarah whispered into her radio. "We have unexpected civilians on the ground floor. 3 children, approximate ages 6 to 12. They appear to be family members of unknown relationship to the target." The response from Commander Morrison revealed the kind of split-second decision-making that separated elite operators from regular soldiers. "Understood, Martinez. Secure the civilians and continue with the mission. We adapt and overcome." Sarah knelt down to the children's level, speaking softly in the basic Arabic she had learned during language training. "It's okay," she said, her voice calm and reassuring despite the dangerous situation. "We're not here to hurt you. Stay quiet and stay together." The oldest child, a girl who appeared to be about 12, looked up at Sarah with wide, frightened eyes. In the dim light filtering through the room's single window, the girl seemed to notice something unexpected about this armed soldier. Despite the military gear and weapons, there was something unmistakably feminine about Sarah's presence that seemed to provide comfort in the terrifying situation. "You're a woman," the girl whispered in broken English, her surprise evident even through her fear. Sarah smiled gently, thinking about how her journey from a small Texas town had led her to this moment of protecting innocent children in a war zone halfway around the world. Yes, I am. And I'm here to make sure you and your family are safe tonight. The capture of Viper occurred on the second floor, where the rest of Sarah's team had cornered the terrorist leader, in what appeared to be a makeshift command center. The man who had been responsible for the deaths of dozens of coalition soldiers was taken alive without a single shot being fired, thanks to the team's professional execution of their mission plan. As SEAL Team 7 prepared to extract from the compound with their prisoner, Sarah remained with the civilian children until arrangements could be made for their safety. Her presence seemed to calm them, and she found herself thinking about the broader implications of their work. They weren't just capturing terrorists and disrupting enemy operations. They were protecting innocent people who had become caught up in conflicts they didn't choose. During the helicopter ride back to base, Commander Morrison approached Sarah with an expression of pride and respect that she had never seen from him before. "Outstanding work tonight, Martinez. Your tactical skills saved this mission, but more importantly, your humanity made sure we didn't lose sight of why we do this job." Sarah nodded, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction that went beyond personal achievement. She had proven herself in real combat, but she had also demonstrated that being a deadly warrior didn't require abandoning compassion and moral judgment. The same qualities that made her different from her male teammates, the same femininity that others had mocked, had actually made her more effective in a complex situation that required both strength and sensitivity. Back at base, word of the successful mission spread quickly through the special operations community. Sarah's performance had been flawless, and her handling of the civilian situation had prevented what could have been a public relations disaster for the military. She had shown that a female SEAL could not only match the combat effectiveness of her male counterparts, but could bring unique capabilities that enhanced the entire team's performance as she prepared for sleep that night. Sarah carefully applied her pink lipstick one more time, thinking about Miguel and the pride he would have felt seeing her succeed at the highest levels of military service. She had become the warrior he always believed she could be, proving that strength and courage came in many forms and that a woman with pink lipstick could indeed stand among the deadliest fighters in the world. 2 years later, Senior Chief Petty Officer Sarah Martinez stood before a group of new SEAL candidates at the Coronado training facility. Her pink lipstick perfectly applied, despite having just completed a grueling training demonstration. She had become the youngest person ever promoted to Senior Chief in the SEAL community, and her reputation as both a deadly operator and exceptional leader had spread throughout the military. The candidates before her represented a new generation of warriors, including 3 women who had made it through the initial screening process. Sarah saw something of herself in their determined faces, especially in the eyes of the female candidates who were undoubtedly facing the same skepticism and challenges she had overcome years earlier. "My name is Senior Chief Martinez," she began, her voice carrying the authority earned through countless successful missions. "Some of you may have heard stories about me. Some of those stories are probably true. Others are probably exaggerated, and a few might even be completely made up. But I'm not here to talk about the past. I'm here to talk about your future." Jake Peterson, now a petty officer first class and one of Sarah's closest friends, stood at the back of the room watching her address the new class. He had served alongside Sarah on 15 combat missions across 3 different countries, and he had seen her evolve from a determined candidate into one of the most respected operators in the SEAL community. "You're here because you think you want to be Navy SEALs," Sarah continued, making eye contact with each candidate as she spoke. "But wanting something and being willing to sacrifice everything to achieve it are 2 very different things. Over the next several months, you'll discover which category you really belong in." After her presentation to the new candidates, Sarah walked across the base to the memorial wall where the names of fallen SEALs were engraved in black granite. She paused in front of a section that included her brother Miguel's name, which had been added to honor Marines who had died serving alongside SEAL units in joint operations. "Hey, Miguel," she said quietly, touching his name with her fingertips. "I kept my promise. I became the warrior you always said I could be, and I did it without giving up who I am." Commander Morrison, now promoted to captain, approached Sarah at the memorial wall. He had become one of her strongest supporters and had personally recommended her for several high-profile assignments that had enhanced her reputation throughout the special operations community. "The Pentagon called this morning," he said. his voice filled with pride. "They want you to head up a new training program for integrated special operations teams. It's a chance to shape the future of how all the services work together in combat." Sarah turned from the memorial wall to face her mentor, considering the implications of such an assignment. It would mean leaving active field operations behind and transitioning into a leadership role that would affect the careers and training of thousands of future operators. "What about the team?" she asked, thinking about the operators she had served alongside for the past 2 years. "The team will always be here," Captain Morrison replied, "but your impact on the future of special operations could be felt for decades. You've proven that diversity makes us stronger, not weaker. Now you have the chance to institutionalize that understanding." That evening, Sarah sat in her quarters writing a letter to her parents back in Texas. They had never fully understood her choice to join the military, but they had supported her journey and celebrated each of her achievements. Her father still ran the flower shop where she had learned the importance of attention to detail, and her mother continued teaching kindergarten with the same patience and dedication that had shaped Sarah's own leadership style. "Dear Mom and Dad," she wrote, "I wanted to let you know about some changes coming in my career. I've been offered a position that would allow me to train the next generation of special operations forces. It's an honor I never expected when I first put on this uniform, and it's an opportunity to make sure that future warriors understand that strength comes in many different forms." As she finished the letter, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought her from a small Texas town to the highest ranks of the world's most elite military force. She had faced ridicule and skepticism at every step, but she had also found allies and mentors who had helped her succeed. Most importantly, she had proven to herself and others that being true to who she was hadn't made her weaker. It had made her stronger. The next morning, Sarah stood once again in front of her bathroom mirror, applying her signature pink lipstick with the same careful precision she had practiced for years. But now the ritual carried additional meaning. It wasn't just about maintaining her identity in a male-dominated world. It was about inspiring other women to believe that they could achieve anything they set their minds to. A knock on her door interrupted her morning routine. Jake Peterson stood outside holding a newspaper with a front-page article about Sarah's promotion and her new assignment. "Have you seen this?" he asked, showing her the headline. "From pink lipstick to Pentagon, SEAL breaks barriers while breaking records." Sarah smiled as she read the article, which detailed her journey from Naval Academy cadet to senior leader in the special operations community. The story highlighted not just her individual achievements, but the broader changes her success had brought to military culture and training programs. "You know what the best part is?" Jake said as they walked toward the training facility together. "Those candidates you spoke to yesterday? The women in that group aren't going to face the same skepticism you did. You've already proven that women belong here. Now they just have to prove that they're worthy of following in your footsteps." As they reached the training facility, Sarah could see the new candidates beginning their morning physical training session. The female candidates were working alongside their male counterparts with no special attention or different treatment, participating as equals in the same brutal regimen that had tested every SEAL candidate for decades. Senior Chief Martinez called out one of the instructors. "The new class wanted to present you with something before you leave for your new assignment." The candidates had lined up in formation, and their class leader stepped forward with a small gift wrapped in tissue paper. Sarah opened it to find a tube of pink lipstick identical to the one she carried, along with a note signed by the entire class. "Senior Chief Martinez," the note read, "thank you for showing us that being a warrior doesn't mean giving up who we are. Your example has inspired all of us to be better SEALs and better people. We promise to carry on your legacy of excellence and integrity." Sarah felt tears forming in her eyes as she looked at the young faces before her. These men and women represented the future of American special operations, and they understood something that previous generations had struggled to accept, that diversity and inclusion weren't obstacles to overcome, but strengths to be embraced. "Thank you," she said to the assembled candidates, her voice carrying across the training yard. "Remember that being a SEAL isn't about fitting into someone else's idea of what a warrior should look like. It's about being the best version of yourself, whatever that looks like. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to change who you are, even when the whole world is telling you that you should." As Sarah walked away from the training facility for the last time as an active operator, She thought about Miguel and the promise she had made at his funeral. She had not only become a warrior worthy of his memory, but she had also opened doors for future generations of women who dreamed of serving at the highest levels of military service. Her pink lipstick had started as a simple act of personal expression, but it had become a symbol of the idea that strength and femininity weren't mutually exclusive. She had proven that a woman could be both deadly and compassionate, both fierce and nurturing, both a warrior and a lady. And now, as she prepared to take on her new role training the next generation of Special Operations Forces, Sarah Martinez knew that her greatest battles weren't behind her. They were ahead of her, in the hearts and minds of every young person who would learn that there was no single way to be a hero.